Hello, today I want to talk to you all about paying off debt fast. So I've got some great strategies for you, some tips and some methods that are going to help you pay off that debt and get you in a much better financial position. So hello, this is the Looking After Your Pennies YouTube channel. My name's Charlotte Jessup and I'm super excited that you've come to watch this video all about paying off debt. Let's start. What is debt? So debt is money that you owe. Now this can be in the form of credit cards, it can be bank loans, it can be buy now, pay later, it can be any of these things, but it is money that you owe to somebody else. So it's not money that's sitting in your savings account, it's money that you've spent in the past and you need to pay back. So typically when we talk about debt, we're not talking about mortgages because this is a slightly different form of debt that has lower interest rates, is secured against your home, and you have a kind of longer term to pay that off. But when you're looking at the overall picture of being financially independent, some people will include mortgages. But for the purpose of this video, what we're talking about is paying off consumer debt. So this is the stuff that we use for buying things in shops, not big purchases like homes. Okay, so let's have a look at why you might want to think about paying off that debt. So debt actually is spending that you've done in the past, and you are probably, if you're in a position where you've got a lot of debt, spending a lot of your money paying off those previous purchases, whether this is minimum payments on your credit card, whether this is bank loans, car loans, mobile phone contracts, all of these things are debt. So it could be eating up a large chunk of your monthly budget to pay for things that you've already bought or used, or maybe even had to throw away and buy a replacement. So actually, to get rid of that debt would mean that you have more money in your pocket so that you can make more decisions that are forward-looking. So this could be savings, investments, it could be purchases that you want to buy in the future. So actually, by clearing that debt, you put yourself in a much more stable financial position. With most debt, you don't have a choice to stop paying it. You owe that money, so you have to keep paying it regardless of your income. So to actually be free from that puts you in a position where you have more choices around the work that you do and how much you get paid. So there's a lot of incentives for thinking about clearing that debt. So I've got two strategies that are typically used in the personal finance world when we talk about paying off debt. So the first one is called a debt snowball, and the second one is called a debt avalanche. Now they both work in the same way in terms of being a process or a system that enables you to keep track of your debt payments and work towards being debt free. But they do differ in one area. So first up, the debt snowball. So with the debt snowball, you will be taking all of your different debt, so whether it's like credit cards, loans, car loans, etc. And then we are going to be looking at how much, so the amount that you owe to each of these places. So there's not a focus here on interest rates, it's just on the amount you owe. And with the debt snowball, you start off by listing these in order of smallest to largest. So it could be that you have a credit card where you owe, say, £200. You've got then your overdraft where there's £800. Maybe you've then got a car loan that's £2,000 and a bank loan that's £10,000. And you would list them in that order. So we go smallest to largest. What you then do is you pay the minimum payments and you work on any overpayments going towards the smallest remaining debt. So you would start on that credit card where you've got a couple of £100 and you work on paying that off first. Then once that is cleared, you then work on the next one and then you work your way up to those bigger ones. The benefit of this particular strategy is that you put yourself in a good psychological position. In the first instances, when you start paying off debt, you are paying off your debts quickly. You will start seeing some of those smaller ones disappear very fast, or at least in a few months or years. But some of those bigger ones are going to take a much longer timescale. And by the point that you get to start paying off those, you will already be a pro at clearing debt because you have done it with some smaller debts. So the idea behind this one is that those kicks and the highs that you get from paying off your debts in the beginning will carry you through to the more long-term and bigger amounts that you need to pay. So that's the debt snowball. Let's look now at the debt avalanche. So this one, instead of focusing on the amount that you owe, focuses on the interest rate. Because obviously the interest rate is how much you are paying to have that loan. So the focus with the debt avalanche is clearing those high interest rate debts. So it could be that when you look at your debts, you actually see that the smallest payments are actually your highest interest ones anyway. So you could end up doing a mashup of the two. But if that's not the case, we're going to focus on paying off those higher interest rate debts first. So we're going to list them in order of interest rates, highest to lowest. And then we're going to do the same process. We're going to keep paying the minimum payments on all of them, but we're going to throw any extra money that we're using to clear our debts onto the biggest interest rate loan first. So we're going to clear them in order of how much they're costing us, and that is all related to the interest rate. It's a slightly different perspective because it looks at a more kind of mathematical and maybe logical approach to clearing your debt. You are trying to get rid of the ones that are the most expensive first. However, this could mean that you start your debt-free journey by tackling some really big debts first. It could be that you maybe have to start with a debt that's like 5,000 or 10,000 first, whereas with the debt snowball route, you'd be clearing small amounts, which will make you feel good. So it really depends how you feel about tackling maybe some bigger payments first versus having those quick wins at the beginning. So those are the two main methods that you can use to pay off your debt fast. But let's talk about the exact processes you need to go through to achieve that. So the first one is to make sure that you are in a position where you are not dependent on debt. So if you are in a cycle of paying off your overdraft and then spending it all in the following month and then paying it off again, you're not quite in that position where you are ready to pay off your debts. You need to get your finances sorted first. So this can be budgeting, making sure you know what money you have coming in and where it is going. Maybe you need to make a few cutbacks on some luxuries or excess spending so that you're in a good position to manage your money going forwards. You might also want to think about building up an emergency fund. So an emergency fund is a pot of money that you have to fall back on. So sometimes if you throw yourself into paying off debt, what you find is that if the first emergency that comes up, maybe your car needs some repairs or you need a new washing machine or something like that, then you find yourself turning to debt to pay that off again. And then you just are in this cycle of debt. You are using debt as part of your budgeting plan, and actually we want to get out of that. So it could be before you start throwing your money at paying off debt, you need to actually build up a savings pot first so you can use that instead of going back into debt. There's a whole load of psychology there that is going to derail you if you keep finding yourself back into debt at every little hiccup that comes in your life. So the next thing to do is to actually start collecting the information you need. So you are going to need the amounts where you have this debt, so it's credit cards, banks, what the interest rates are if you're looking at a debt avalanche route, and actually what the minimum payments are and who these providers are. So then you've got all the information that you need to make sure that you are paying these things off, and you're paying them off in the order that your chosen system dictates. So you need to collect all that information. Now this could involve ringing up some of your providers. It could involve looking through statements and just making sure you know the exact figures. What I don't want you to do is guess some of these things. So don't go, oh, I owe about this much. Now is the time. If you're serious about getting debt free and clearing that debt, then you need to have the exact figures. So go on the hunt for those, make sure you've got the numbers, make sure you've got those minimum amounts, and make sure you've got those interest rates so you know exactly what you're working with. So the next step is to find somewhere to record this information. You may want to put together a spreadsheet where you list all these things, or you may want to use paper and have a printable. Some people also like to have some sort of visual representation of them paying off debt. So you could make a picture, section it off into blocks, and just colour in a new one every time that you pay off a certain amount towards your debt. But what you do need is to have a somewhere where you are storing those totals. So you need to know how much debt you have remaining after you've made minimum payments and after you've made your additional payments too. You need to be absolutely clear about the figures and how you are progressing. It might feel like you are only making baby steps in the beginning, but actually over time you'll be able to look back in 6 months and go, wow, I've paid off this many hundreds or this many thousands, and again in a year and again 2 years later, and actually that's the motivation that you need to keep going in this process. So make sure that you have good records, make sure you have all that information stored somewhere safely. Like I say, it doesn't matter whether it's on paper or in a digital form, just have something that you can use and it works for you. So the next practical step is to make sure that you are paying minimum payments on them all. You may want to set this up as an automated system so that you are constantly paying the minimum amounts without you having to think about it. You need to make sure you're doing this, otherwise you're going to get in trouble with your credit providers. So make sure that you are covering those minimum payments, and then you can focus on the one that is at the top of the list and make sure that that's where your overpayments are going. So this final step is to actually put as much money as you can afford, as your budget allows, into paying off the debt that's at the top of the list. So whether you are doing debt snowball or you are doing debt avalanche, you need to make sure that whatever debt is at the top is the one that you are putting your money towards. So you might want to look at side hustles, you might want to look at picking up some overtime at work, but then you know exactly where that money is going. You have a goal, you have a focus, you know where any extra money that comes your way is aiming for, and you send that money there. And just make sure that you are not overstretching yourself. You do not want to go break your budget and find yourself in debt the next month just because you put a whole load of money towards your debt this month. So be sensible about it, but have focus. Don't think one day, oh, I'm just going to put a bit on that debt. You have a system. You should get to choose which one you use, but once you're in that system, make sure you stick to it, because that's what makes the process faster. You have a clear path, you know what you're working towards, and you can see the end goal. Anyway, I hope that really helps you with your debt-free journey, and you are going to love being debt-free. It might feel like it's a long way away, but you will find yourself in a much more comfortable financial position. So pick one, have a look, do your research, have a look into the debt snowball, have a look into the debt avalanche, make a choice for which one you think works with you, and just go for it. Look at some of my videos around side hustles and earning money online, and you will be able to then use that income to help pay off those debts. Anyway, I hope you've liked this video. If you want to see my future videos, then make sure you hit subscribe, and you will get all of my little notification every time I do a new video. And drop me a like and leave me a comment as well to let me know what you thought. Thank you so much for coming along today and watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next one.